Go. Hello and welcome to this In Conversation With. I'm Tracy Jane Hughes from Manage Those Things and the Business Cheerleading Club. And I'm delighted today to welcome Alys Stuart, who I've known for a few years now, who is fantastic with numbers and reassuring people that numbers aren't difficult. So Alys, what is it that you do?
Hi, I'm Alys. My company's called Together We Balance. Officially, I'm an accountant. I try not to use that title though, because it brings up connotations of boring people sat behind desks and telling you off for not remembering all your receipts. So I run my practice from an office in Preston in Lancashire. I have a couple of staff who work with me, but I like to work with small businesses, well, very small businesses in the local area, but also across the country because I can work virtually, to help them with all the boring compliance stuff, getting your tax returns in on time, getting your self-assessment done, understanding all the rules, but also encouraging people to understand what the numbers mean as they go along. If we give you your numbers at the end of the year, just telling you how much tax you've got to pay, that's a bit late for you to actually change anything to improve your business. Whereas if you monitor month by month, even quarter by quarter would be better, and have a look at, how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, what the difference is. Hopefully it's a nice positive one in your bank. Then you can see which bits of your business are working well, which aren't, helps you where to focus, helps you choose which cost you're going to try and reduce and which income you can increase. But you need to be doing that on a regular basis, not just leaving it to, all I want to know is how much tax I've got to pay.
Yes.
That's what I try and encourage people to do.
and you're brilliant at that, Alys. You're so you're so calm about it that you bring that calmness to people. And I think a lot of business owners, they get worried or concerned about numbers because they think it's math. And
exactly.
It's like I didn't like maths at school, so I can't do this. Yeah. Yet it's such an important part of their business.
It is, and I'm lucky. I like maths at school. However, there is very little maths I do during my job, to be honest. And doing your doing your bookkeeping, knowing your numbers there's a little bit of maths involved. But we've all got a calculator in our pocket these days, and most people can use Excel. But most of it is about being organised. So you actually have your numbers to hand, have your receipts in have a system that you use to record your receipts, to record what comes in and who owes you what. That's the most important part of it. What the numbers actually are, you can get somebody else to be to sort that bit out for you. So it's not maths, it's organisation.
Okay, well that makes total sense. So when we are sort of trying to organise ourselves in our business and put some systems and structures in place to help us stay organised, what do you advise that we keep a check on?
Okay, you need to keep a check on what you're spending. That's probably one of the biggest areas.
Okay.
And it's very easy to keep signing up to a lot of little bits of software. That's generally a big money sink or money pit, is little bits of software. It might be £5 a month here, £2 a month there, £20 a month here. And when you actually write it all down in a list and add it up, it becomes quite a significant expense. And there's probably a few bits in there you don't actually even use anymore because these subscriptions keep rolling over, and they've got your credit card details, and that's it. Once they've got you in, they don't make it so easy for you to get out again. So keep an eye on what you're spending. Make sure you know what it is. Make sure they're still relevant, and shop around a little bit. You don't have to use, the main brands that you're used to using as a consumer, if you like, as an individual. There are business offers out there for people that can sometimes be better. But also don't get distracted by the next shiny thing. It doesn't all have to be done on a computer. Sometimes a pen and paper is still the best way to deal with things. I do have a couple of clients who still do all their accounts on a sheet of paper They write down what comes in on one side of the page, they write down what goes out on the other side of the page, but they do it as they go along so they can actually see it. And because they've physically written it down, it sinks in. So that's the first thing to take a notice of. The second thing really is obviously is the money coming in, which is great. You want lots and lots of that, but you need to record who it's come from, why it's come in, and especially if you're operating a credit system, which is where you're sending in, doing the work, sending an invoice and getting paid later, you need to know who owes you what, and you need to have a system in place that regularly chases those people up for money. Some businesses just, their system is they won't pay until they're chased for it. So if you never chase for it, they'll never pay you. Or they'll pay one at the end of the month, or they'll wait till they get a statement. So making sure you have a system in that just sends out a little email, you know, oh, by the way, your invoice was due yesterday, a notice has not been paid, just reminding you. Or you can even do that ahead if you're offering 30-day terms, just a reminder that your invoice is due in a couple of days. That can be enough to just start helping that money coming in, so that you don't realise 6 months down the road that somebody's not paid you, and then you feel like you don't want to pick up the phone to chase them because you've left it so long. So that's quite an important one, is the money coming in. And then having a system where try and be consistent with how you pay for things. If you're a sole trader, it's very easy to use your own bank account a lot. And then when it comes for checking what you've spent on what, you can't always tell whether it was for business or was it personal. So it's well worth setting up a separate account. You don't have to have a business account as a sole trader if your bank lets you. You can just have a separate personal account. There are some very cheap online accounts you can get for businesses. One I'm just playing with at the moment is called Counting Up. So Counting Up, and they've deliberately set up an online bank account system to help sole traders, because it's quite cheap in comparison to some of the mainstream business bank accounts, which is usually what puts people off getting a separate account. But having a separate account that you use for your business spending can really help you stay organised. And if it happens and HMRC decide to come knocking, and sometimes they will just pick somebody's name out the hat. It's not, you don't have to have been naughty to have an HMRC inspection, and you're spending on your personal bank account, they will need to see that bank account, and you will then be giving them all your personal spending as well, and they may well ask into those spendings, and they're allowed to because you used it for your business. So keeping it separate is well worth it. It's quite an important thing to do. As a limited company, you have to have a business bank account. It has to be in the limited company's name, but use it. Try not to use your business bank account for your personal spending because you've not got the right cards on you. That can cause problems. And try to avoid cash and cheques at all costs, really, in this day and age. Just makes it easier. If you have a cash business, you can't avoid it. But I would say with that, if you're being paid in cash, try to pay it into the bank before you spend it again, because then it's easier to record, you know, I received £200 today from such and such, that's gone in the bank, and I spent £100 with so and so, that's gone out the bank via a cash machine and I've spent it. So you've still got that record of your transactions going through your bank account. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to be quite disciplined, but it's well worth it when it comes to checking your records at the end of the week or the month, because then it's all there and you've not got to think, where did that £50 go? So those are a few sort of tips there for getting organised, really.
Yeah, and I think a lot of small businesses find it quite hard to keep on top of things. Because often they, you know, take a mum in business, for example, you know, they're very small businesses that are working their business alongside, you know, being a mum and working, you know, looking after the children. So they are, and often their customers are other mums that they're meeting at toddler group, for example. So, you know, they might deliver an order to a mum at toddler group, get given money, goes in the purse, and then they just forget to write it down, or forget that they've got that cash for the business, and it just goes into the purse, and it's just like, oh, okay, what did I do with that? So I often say, well, have a separate purse in your bag.
Yep.
So you've got a business purse and a personal purse, and then obviously you've got your record of your order that you've given out, and hopefully you can then reconcile that when you get home. So you just tick paid on
Yeah.
your invoice sheet. Is that sort of what you'd recommend as well, Alice?
Yeah, so when it comes to sort of physically what you're actually going to do, I would say one of the most important things is it needs to fit around you. So don't get up on somebody's told me that they do this business as well and this is the system they use and it doesn't work. You need to have something that you know you're going to do. But the idea of having a separate purse for money is a great one. One thing I tend to use is the plastic wallets you can get with the popper on. So you can get them in 5 and you just have that in your handbag with everything else, and anything to do with your business goes in there. Coins, checks, cash, bits of notes, everything goes in there. And at the end of the day or the week, you just take it out but it's all in one place. So you're not sort of scrabbling around and trying to remember what's gone where. So you just have a system that fits you. So if you're a stationary type person like I am and you like having them all different colours, that might work. If you like to be eco-friendly, maybe you use the big brown envelopes that come through the door and write the month on the front and take that round with you. Or you buy yourself a nice little wallet with pretty colours on it, something that you're going to want to use, that you don't look at it and feel dread because it's taking you out of your comfort zone. It needs to suit what you're doing. If you're a tech person, you like using your phone, one thing you can do for your receipts is actually take pictures of them. You could either just use your camera on your phone, literally, so you've got your picture. You can there are various apps around that help you to then read the receipts and capture the information, and then you can use that information and push it into software. There are also ones that are sort of halfway houses. They sort of part read your receipt and then you can use it yourself to actually just take the information off and stick in a spreadsheet somewhere or write it down. But the benefit of that is you're not then scrabbling around for a bit of paper in the bottom of your purse that's all crinkled and got what's it stuck to it and a chew it or whatever, or it's in front of a car and somebody stood on it, or it's been it's gone blank. Because you are responsible for keeping your records and for making sure the receipts are readable. And, I've got a few tradesmen on my books and I don't even want to touch the receipt, let alone I wonder where it's been. So, but taking a picture, take the front and the back, because quite often there's information on the back of it, especially Sainsbury's, they're quite annoying. That's one way to get around it, if that's something that suits you. So if you're a person, everything's on your phone, use your phone. If you're a tactile person and you want it, physical receipts in your handbag and you're going to be neat and put them in there, but mainly find a system and stick to it, really.
And sometimes it can take a few months to find the system that works for you, can't it? So you might need to try a few different things to work out what's best for you and your business and how you're running and growing your business. So it's okay to have a couple of different systems, but keeping the records is the most important thing, isn't it?
Yeah. The result at the end is more important of how you get there, but you need to get there. So it is important to keep those records.
So in terms of sort of understanding the numbers, a lot of people get really confused with what's turnover, what's profit, what are costs, what's tax. So just as a starting point, Alice, we haven't got an awful lot of time together, but just as a starting point, what's the difference between turnover and profit, please?
Okay, right. Turnover is we tend to only use it for business, but basically your turnover is your sales. So I'm going to try and take an example of somebody who does body shop parties. So your turnover is actually the products that you sell. So the total retail cost, if you're selling a body wash for £10, then your turnover is £10. You know that money is not going to hit your pocket because you've had to buy it, you've had to pay for it, or you may only get commission, although that's slightly different. So the turnover basically is your sales. That's the biggest number that you have from money coming in, if you like. Another example would be if you sell on Etsy, for instance. You'll sell something for £10 and you might get £8.50 in your bank account. Your turnover is the £10 that you never actually see. You need to remember that it's not what comes into your bank account, that's different. So in that example, we've got turnover of £10, we've got costs of £1.50, which leaves us with a profit of £8.50. And it's actually the profit that we receive into the bank. And that's one of the most confusing sort of scenarios we get, where somebody's taken part of your fees, if you like, off the money that comes into your bank account, so you never see the big number. So PayPal, Etsy, eBay, Amazon, all of those, Shopify, all of those, you never actually see your turnover figure, but you need to know what it is.
So as a business owner, we need to be recording our sales, our turnover. So sales equals turnover, same thing. So we just need to record our sales. I'm loving this sun. I'm just going to be in full sun soon. Sorry, I'm changing. I need to be in the. Sorry. So we need to record our sales, so the biggest number. And ideally, we need to know who we've sold it to and what we've sold.
Yes,
we need to record that however we are recording it, whether it's on a spreadsheet, whether it's in an exercise book, or whether it's on an app on our phone. We need to record that.
Yes, that's the ideal. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but I won't muddy the waters by putting that in. But if you've got somebody that's saying, hang on, I'm paid by commission, that's different. So that things, but in general, turnover is sales.
Okay. So we'll leave the commission one. If people have got questions about commission, then if you get in touch, and we'll help you work that through.
And the reason your turnover is important is if you are doing really, really well, it's your turnover figure that HMRC will look at to determine whether you suddenly need to be VAT registered, not your profits, which is a lower figure.
Okay. So our profits aren't our turnover. So we can't say I'm. Again, there's a lot of different language used, isn't there, in terms of money and business and finance. So some people will say I'm earning this much, and it could mean any number of different things.
Exactly. And it's when people are trying to compare businesses, it's quite important to make sure you're looking at the same numbers, because if I tell you, I'm not going to use any numbers related to my business, so I'm not giving anything away. I could turn around and say I'm doing really well. My turnover is £100,000 a year, and it sounds great, but that's no good if my expenses are £150,000 a year, because that's quite pants. I've made a loss. Whereas if my turnover is £100,000 a year, my expenses are only £10,000. That's quite a very nice income for a year, £90,000, isn't it? So turnover is a figure that gives you an idea of how busy somebody might be, but it doesn't give you any idea of how well the business is actually doing. There's a little saying which gets bandied around from time to time, and it's turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash flow is king. Because your turnover minus your costs equals your profit, and there are different types of profit. We'll just stick at it, that basic one for now. And then, but your cash flow is what you've actually got in the bank, which can be a different figure again, especially if you're a limited company, because of the different types of accounts you have to do. So for instance, I could do a load of work for somebody. I could do a week's worth of work for somebody and charge them £2,000. So my turnover for that week is £2,000. My cost for that week might be £1,000. So my profit is £1,000. But if I've not actually been paid, my cash flow is zero. So I'm in trouble. So it sounds like you're doing well because you've got great turnover, 2,000 for a week. You've got a great profit of £1,000. But if you're not being paid, you're in trouble. And there are businesses running in really good profits that don't manage that cash flow, that don't manage what comes in and out of the business properly, that go bust because they can't pay the bills because their customers haven't paid them.
So understanding when the money's coming in is probably even more important than knowing it's coming or getting the contract or getting the sale.
Yeah.
Because if we don't have the money in, we can't pay the money out.
Yeah. And then you don't get the things you need to then produce more. You know, if you're selling something, you can't, well, in general, you can't sell something until you've bought it. So if you haven't got the money in the bank to pay for it before you've sold it, you're in trouble. Again, there are exceptions to that one, but we won't leave those. Exceptions to everything, that what makes my job quite interesting. But you need to know when that money's coming in, so that you can spend money, and having sort of a bit of a slush fund or a certain amount of limit in the bank account that you don't go below, so you know that it's there if somebody lets you down, is quite a good state to get to, but not always possible. So yeah, it is, cash flow is understanding where your cash is coming in and when it's going out can be quite a big, make a big difference to your business. Some people will look at their cash flow on a yearly basis, so they'll look at the next 12 months and do less of when they think they're invoiced, when they think they're going to do the work, when they think they're going to get paid, and when they think the money is going to be coming in. So that's quite a common thing to do for a business. If you want to go a step further and really manage it, you'll do the next 12 weeks, week by week, and then move that so that you can, you know, if it, you know, in a month is great, but is it the beginning of the month or the end of the month? You know, you've got a bill due on the first of the month that you can't afford to pay because you're not getting paid to the end of the month, you're in trouble. Whereas the way around, great, but you won't know that if you're only looking at it on a monthly basis. So short term could be daily, you know, for some people, but generally weekly is enough. Short term weekly, longer term monthly, just to make sure that you've not got some big expense coming up that you've forgotten about. And again, it encourages you to write down what's going on in your business, and then you feel like you actually own those numbers rather than they're just sort of there in the background.
Sorry, what's going on in your business? Typing that one up, because I think that's important, because I've just had some domain names renew and my hosting renew, and sometimes during my year it's quite big. It's quite, you know, a chunk of money that is going out. Now I knew it was coming up, so I had the money in the bank ready to pay for it, but you know, if you're not prepared, and because I pay for those annually, so that's an annual cost. But I know that, you know, for this particular domain name, it comes in May. So I've prepared for that in advance and knew that that cash was going out. So I needed to have the cash in the bank ready. But if we don't know our numbers, we won't know that that's going to happen. And you'll suddenly, you know, potentially go into overdraft. And obviously, you know, you don't know that's coming in. I mean, the other thing, Alys, is how do, you know, often people that don't know their numbers get a bit of surprise when they go on holiday. You know, so depending on the type of business, they might forget that actually they're not going to be earning for a couple of weeks. So depending on what it is that they do, they might not be earning for a couple of weeks, or depending on when they're paid, like you say, you know, if you're invoicing and expecting payment within 30 days, and that's your choice, isn't it? As a business owner, you choose your terms, and you know, if you want to be paid in 7 days or it has to be up front, then that's for you to decide as a business owner. You don't have to stick to 30 days. But you know, how do you advise people, you know, to sort of smooth, I guess, you know, that their income so that they can pay those monthly subscriptions that they need to keep the business going?
There's different ways of doing it. If you can get real good control of your business, you do what you've done and you make sure you've got the money there up front. So having a business account with a savings account is always a good idea, because you can then move that money out of your account and put it into savings ahead of time. Because most people will find that they will spend what's in their bank. If you look at your personal spending, if you've got a certain budget in your head, you'll be looking at your bank balance and working out what you can spend by the end of the month, and you'll spend it. But if you take £100 out and stick that in a savings account at the beginning of the month, you'll still only go down to zero because you're spending what's in the bank account. So you need to take that money out in advance, put it in a savings account so that it's there to put back in when you need to actually use it. Just leaving it in the account can be difficult to remember how much needs to be in there to actually not spend it. And it's the same for things like corporation tax or VAT. If you're VAT registered, you know, it's very easy to spend all that money forgetting it's not all yours. You do have to take 20% off the top. So having a separate account to move into can really, really help. And that's the ideal position to get to, I'd say. Obviously, there are, if you get into trouble going the other way, there are other options of using credit. But basically, if you're paying interest, somebody's making a lot of money off of you. So trying to avoid that at all costs is important. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes something comes up, it's unexpected, you've got to pay for it, so or your business stops. So there are ways of getting around that. For instance, there are insurance companies or insurance credit providers who will allow you to spread your insurance costs throughout 10 months or 12 months of the year. Costs you a little bit extra to do that, but at least that means you haven't suddenly had to find the money all up front. So there's a balance between what's it worth to be able to spread that money out, really.
So sometimes that there's choices, isn't there, about how am I bothered about my profit at the end of the year compared to my cash flow during the year. So for insurance, for example, it might be £20 over a year difference with what you're paying. Are you better having that money in your account over the year and just paying a little bit extra, or is it better to save that money and pay for it and have £20 extra on your profit?
Exactly, and there's always balances between the cost of something, doing it one way, and the cost of doing it the other way. And cost isn't always money; it can also be time. So it's worth thinking about. And you can do a similar thing with getting paid if you're getting paid on credit. That you can encourage people to pay you more quickly by offering a little discount. It might only be 1%, 2%, 3%, and okay, you get less money back through offering that discount. But is it more important to have all that money in 3 months' time because you know they're going to be late, or to pay a little bit to have it now? And that's quite a common one with some big suppliers, to encourage people to pay on time. So rather than penalising people for being late, they use the carrot approach and encourage them to pay quicker.
Yes, I've used that in the past with some of my suppliers, where I've benefited from paying early and getting that bit of extra discount, because I've had the money in from my customers, so I can then pay my supplier, and I get the extra profit. So it's worthwhile. But it's understanding all of those different bits and keeping control of that, isn't it? That's the important thing.
And just being aware of it. I mean, sometimes it could just be a case of setting aside some time in the week, at the beginning of the week, to sit down and do your numbers so that it gets done. Because it's a job nobody particularly likes to do, unless you're an accountant. If it is a job that you don't particularly like doing, do it early. It's a bit like Christmas dinner, eat your sprouts. Or I think there's a proper business term of if you've got 2 frogs to eat during the day, the big one first. Nobody wants to eat a frog, but you might as well get the big one out of the way. Plan in those bits that you find difficult and hard earlier in the week, so that you actually get them done. Then they're out of the way and you can enjoy the rest of the week. It's not easy to do, but it's worth it if you can actually make it work.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely brilliant, Alys. So if you're giving 3 tips, 3 top tips for business owners to get on top of their numbers, what would it be?
Planning time to do it.
Okay.
Yep. Do you want to?
Okay, planning time.
Find a time. Yep. So planning time. Find a system that works for you that you can stick to.
Yeah, and there's so many different things. It's different ways of doing it, isn't there?
Yeah. And record what comes in and what goes out. Make sure you record it. Actually do it. Write it down somewhere, type it somewhere, have it so that you can see it, whether that's, as you say, written on a page in an exercise book, typed into a spreadsheet, or input into some bookkeeping software. Make sure you get that written down in good time.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter, what you're saying is it doesn't matter how that's done. It's doing it.
Just do it. Yeah. As long as you're not VAT registered, it doesn't matter how. There's something coming up in the next couple of year or two that's might change it for VAT registered people. If you're not VAT registered, it doesn't matter how you do it.
Yeah. Okay. So if we aren't VAT registered, or we're if we're not VAT registered, it doesn't matter how we do it.
Correct.
If we are VAT registered, or we're getting to the stage of being VAT registered, so that's turnover of 80,000 or 88,000, is it?
85 at the moment.
85. Okay. So if we're getting towards a turnover, and that's not profit, that's a turnover, so that's sales of up to 85,000. If we're getting towards that, then we need to speak to somebody like you to help us to record how we record.
You'll need software to do your VAT returns because HMRC are changing the systems, but that's a whole.
It's a whole new thing. It's Make Tax Digital.
That's the one.
Yes.
Making tax difficult.
I love it. So, Alys, thank you so much. That's been absolutely brilliant.
Thanks for inviting me.
If people want some more help, then they can contact you directly at Together We Balance.
Yeah.
And you can help people remotely. And yes, you are based in Lancashire, so people in Lancashire can meet with you directly, but you work remotely as well. So
I do. I even have clients internationally, so it's anywhere.
Oh, okay, brilliant. And yeah, you've made it simple in terms of understanding numbers, and we just need to spend some time doing it as business owners, don't we? That's all we need to do.
Yep. It's not easy to do for your own business. I'm better at doing it for everybody else's even than my own. So I'm not going to pretend it's easy, but it's worth doing because the benefits are great.
Yeah, and that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that, Alys, because I think with all business things, if we are helping other people in business, we always put our clients first rather than putting ourselves first. So, forgetting to do our accounts, or not forgetting, using that time that we had allocated to do our numbers for something else, for a client that has got an urgent thing to do, then, that's what we do, because we are caring business owners ourselves.
Yeah, and that's why you plan it in at the beginning of the week so that you might actually get it done by the end.
That's a really good way of doing it. So we have a lot of support within the Business Cheerleading Club, and people sort of are asking lots of questions about this. So I know that our numbers conversation will continue in the Business Cheerleading Club. So if anybody needs extra help or ongoing help, then but people are very welcome to join us in there. So thank you so much, Alys, and I look forward to working with you again in the future. And if it might be that we actually spend some time, a bit more time, on some of the more detailed stuff for club members. So we'll see where that goes.
Okay, thanks very much.
So thank you very much, everybody, and I'll speak to you soon. I'm Tracy Jane Hughes from Manage Those Things and the Business Cheerleading Club, and I've been speaking to Alys Stuart from Together We Balance.
Thank you.